CBS News Face the Nation moderator Margaret Brennan reports another senior official will resign over President Trump's decision to pull American troops from Syria. CBS News broke this story Saturday. Brett McGurk will be leaving his post as special presidential envoy to the global coalition to counter ISIS. McGurk was appointed by President Obama in 2015 and initially planned to resign in February of next year. His resignation came one day after Secretary of Defense General James Mattis resigned over his disagreement with the president's decision. Margaret is also a senior foreign affairs correspondent for CBS News. She joins me now from Washington. Margaret, just a little bit over a week and a half ago, McGurk said it would be reckless to consider ISIS defeated. I guess no surprise that he's leaving now.
Well, this is a surprise given that Brett McGurk, who is the president's envoy, has been key to knitting together the 60 countries who make up that coalition against ISIS. He has been America's chief negotiator in dealing with the ground troops, the SDF forces, who have really been the fighters who have put ISIS into retreat in Iraq and in Syria. He resigned after the president made the snap decision to pull out the 2,000 troops, effectively abandoning our allies because he felt he couldn't do this job with integrity any longer, both because of what he said from the podium at the State Department just 8 days before the president made this announcement, those comments you just detailed, but also because he had been giving personal assurances to Kurdish fighters that the U.S. would do what President Trump had ordered, which is to continue to fight and to stabilize the area so that ISIS didn't become a resurgent force in that area. So this is really hard to overstate the importance of Brett McGurk's role here in the coalition against ISIS. His resignation, another exclamation point here, that the national security officials advising the president really believe that his snap decision has endangered the success of America on the battlefield and put our allies at risk.
When you talk about the battlefield, Margaret, you know, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Joe Dunford, had said they believe there's only 20% of troops prepared, Syrian troops prepared there to deal with ISIS. So at this point, where does this leave U.S. foreign policy on the ground in Syria?
Well, there are a number of different players on the ground in Syria. Often when people refer to Syrian forces, they're talking about Assad's government. That's separate from the fighters in the SDF, the U.S. allied fighters who are really beating back ISIS. Assad's army didn't do that. It is the Kurdish fighters who have done that. And they've done that with U.S. support through airstrikes, through arming, through different kinds of guidance that America has helped them to accomplish here. And now the U.S. cannot explain to our allies, whether they're the fighters on the ground or whether they are our allies in Britain and in France, what America's policy is. We can't even say whether U.S. airstrikes will continue or whether we will continue to in any way support the fighters on the ground. The president made this snap decision without a policy in place for withdrawal. Number of U.S. officials that I've been speaking to over the past few months said, yes, the president did want to draw down, but he did not put a plan in place to do so. So the fighters who are on the front lines were literally left with a tweet telling them that America was pulling out their support. If you want to draw down, you do it gradually. You do it with a plan in place. And this is what Secretary of Defense Jim Mattis so strongly objected to in his letter of resignation when he gave that this week. And McGurk's departure is the second high-level official to do so in protest.
Very significant. Margaret Brennan, thank you very much for joining us.